Om Shuklam Baradaram Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarva Vignopashantaye Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murtibheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Sahanavavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahai तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ओम शांति शांति शांति. Okay, so I thought we'll do something a little different and the same anyway at the same time. So this is a composition, as you all know, most of you know, is written by Sadashiva Brahmendra. So in our tradition, in fact, all over India, the different regions, different languages, there have been so many composers who were also poets, who were saints, and who were scholars of our scriptures. And we can see that, we can see the depth of their knowledge and understanding and devotion in their writings. And there is so much of the teaching that pervades through that. So I thought, let us look at one of this great composer of the South, Sadashiva Brahmendra. So he wrote a composition which is very simple. It's just about 4 lines with a few words. And it is entitled this Chinta Naasti Kila. That's how it starts. So Chinta Nasti. What is Chinta? Chinta is, one meaning of Chinta is worry, worrying, anxiety, obsessing over things. So this is something which all of us know very well. We have intimate experience of. Everybody worries. It's the biggest worry of people is that we worry. And it applies to everyone, even children. Even children worry. Very young children worry. Worry about themselves, worry about others, worry about the world. And the more we know about the world, more we worry about the world. So this anxiety, and then it is manifest also in various symptoms. So one meaning is worrying, this Chinta. Chinta naasti. So he talks about our poet. Chinta, there is no worry. A mind is free from worrying. This mind is free from anxiety. So before getting further into it, what is this anxiety? What is this thing? Where does it come from? Really speaking, if you look at this, so the anxiety along with certain symptoms are there, manifestations are there. This is something which has in fact, it is natural. It is natural to worry and also necessary. They say it has its roots in fear. you know and why fear? So fear, and then again it has its roots in the survival mechanism of an organism. you know so when a person's survival is at risk, you know when there is danger, perceived danger, may not be real danger, but it is a danger perceived by this living being, be it a person, be it an animal. Okay. And when it senses this potential danger, it has to protect itself. you know and in order to protect himself, what happens? So the body releases certain hormones. Cortisons are released. And then these create a certain environment which makes a person ready to deal with the potential danger. Also, they say the flight or fight mechanism is triggered. So should I run away from the situation and escape? Or should I confront it and fight? And in order to prepare me for that, so the whole system goes into an hyper alert mode. Even in animals, you see that the ears perk up, a dog, any animal. So towards the direction of the sound, it becomes hyper alert, and the heart rate goes up, the blood pressure goes up, and it is all ready to act. So it protects. What if it wasn't there? If this fear wasn't there, sometimes people don't get afraid. So he's going in front of the fire, and he goes nearer and nearer, and you're watching it on the TV, and you start getting scared. But that fellow keeps going, oblivious of it. And then what happens? He gets into trouble. Okay. So, so there is a definite purpose to which this fear has a protective function too. And fear generates anxiety. Anxiety creates this environment which prepares me to deal with the potential problem. Okay. But then when it becomes too much, or when it becomes needless, when there is no reason to worry, and then the person starts becoming worried and anxious, and it becomes extreme, the reaction becomes excessive, then what happens? It can incapacitate the person also. Prevent the person from acting. So here I'm ready to preparing myself to do something, but I become incapacitated. I cannot do anything. Remember what happened to Arjuna in the battlefield. Visrijya Sasharam Chapam Shoka Samvigna Manasaha. So he was anxious to begin with. He started worrying about things, and he goes through all kinds of internal reactions. And then at the Visrijya, Uska Sharam, all the weapons he puts down, he becomes incapacitated to act. Not only that, Shoka Samvigna Manasaha also becomes sad. Okay. So incapacitation, not capacity to act, also can lead to sadness, a sense of helplessness. Is all what happens to people, to us, when we worry too much, or when we become very, very anxious. So this anxiety is a form of affliction. It's a mental affliction. So there are different tapas we talk about, tapatrayam. So afflictions that we deal with, we have to deal with, we are faced with, we, and that has to do with external factors over which we have no control. It may have to do with our environment. It has to do with situations, or it can be purely internal sometimes. I'm worrying, I'm anxious, I don't know what I'm worried about. And you ask a person, what are you worried about? What's the answer? I don't know. I don't know. So it comes from a cause, a source, which is not recognized by me. So this is what Chinta is. Interestingly, the word Chinta also means to think. Chintanam. Chintanam is to think. Okay. To dwell upon something. That is also called as Chinta. Okay. So Shravanam, like Mananam. So that Mananam includes Chintanam. So I think upon things, I dwell upon something. And this is something which is more deliberate, and focused and purposeful, and meant to lead to certain conclusions. So this same word, chint, the root chint, so which can be chinta, worrying, or chintanam, or thinking. It's very important in the context of growth, of maturity. So in spiritual pursuit, takes on Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. So these are the three important factors that are involved in one's growth. So, so learning, coming to know about things right and wrong, dharma, dharma. So that which is permanent, impermanent, these kinds of things. So I learn about values. So this is all the learning process. But then I have to learn to think properly also, the thinking process, processing things properly, properly in the sense of correctly, not making mistakes. So this kind of stuff, it is all part of this process of chintanam, which is important for one's spiritual growth. So we are looking at here chinta. So in the bigger context, they talk about chinta. There are ways of dealing with chinta, So this some people must have thought, coming to this talk, what are we going to talk about? So how do I deal with anxiety? Obviously, otherwise why think about this topic? How do I deal with anxiety? And so techniques, what are the techniques to deal with anxiety? Okay. The physiology, psychology talks about some of these things. And so what to do? You have to learn to relax. So relax yourself physically, relax yourself mentally, because body and mind are associated, they are connected. So you learn certain exercises like breathing, deep breathing, abdominal breathing, and then so counting, to prevent, it's a blocking your process, thinking, worrying process. So like that, exercises are there, relaxation exercises are there. Or so learn meditation. So these are all the things you can practice. Visualizing. Okay. So visualizing, don't, because normally we tend to dwell upon what could go wrong and make me anxious. And I worry about that. Anticipatory anxiety, it's called. I anticipate things realistic or unrealistic, but then I dwell upon them. And that's what makes me anxious. Then I want to make myself unanxious. And then that I cannot do that because already I'm anxious. And so then I'm unable to do. The fact that I'm not able to deal with my anxiety makes me more anxious. So all these things go on. So there are exercises that are taught which you're supposed to really practice before getting into the situation, because afterwards it can become too late. So like that, so autosuggestion, hypnosis, these are all different kinds of things that psychology has certain techniques to help a person when they get anxious or to prepare for situations which might make them anxious. What is said here is not about that. What is said here is, so a context, a person who has reached a state of spiritual growth and maturity, whose mind is not affected by anxieties and fears. So it is in the context of one's spiritual pursuit and spiritual growth that this is talked about. Chinta naasti. There's an interesting verse that says, Chita chinta samaprokta bindu matram visheshata. There's another word in our language called chita. Chita. Some of you know what that means. So chita is a pyre. You know the pyre, the funeral pyre. It's called chita. Chita Agni. So it says, Chita Chinta Samaprokta. This Chitta and Chinta is anxiety, worrying. Chitta is the pyre. He's saying these are very similar. They are very similar to each other. Bindu Matram Visheshata. The only way only in one respect they are different though. And what is that? Bindu Matram. By the Bindu. Bindu is the nasal sound. One is Chitta, one is Chinta. So that is the Bindu, in the end sound. This is all that distinguishes the two. Are really? Sajivan dahate chinta, nirjivam dahate chita. Both of you burn you up. Both of you burn you up. Sajivam, chinta, worrying, what does it do? It burns the fellow who's alive. Chita burns the fellow who's dead. That's the only difference. Okay. Both of them burn. This Anxiety is a terrible thing, It eats you, like they say, no? It eats you up inside. Worrying eats you up inside. It makes you incapacitated. It makes you depressed. It makes you ineffective. So this is all. So there's a lot of. So it's interesting. He says, thus, what to do? How to mitigate this? Mitigate this. Not just in terms of exercises. Mitigation is preventing. Like we have mitigation for hurricane. So you take certain measures here in order to prevent the damage that could possibly occur if there was a disaster. It's called mitigation report you have to get. So how does one mitigate worry? Tell somebody, I'm worrying all the time. I worry a lot. I tend to get anxious. Or, you hoping for some support, you tell somebody. And a very common response is, don't worry. don't, what can I do? What can I do? I worry a lot. What can I do? Can you give me some advice? Then they say, oh, don't worry. Don't worry. When you're worried also, they tell you, don't worry. And what happens? Nothing much happens. It's well-meaning, of course. The advice is well-meaning, but doesn't seem to work. Why not? It's not more often than not, it's not effective. Sometimes can be harmful also, make the situation worse. Why does it not work? Because the person who you're telling to, that's not a solution. The person doesn't want to worry. It's not that they want to worry. You know, if somebody wants to do something and it's a problem potentially, you told them don't do it, and then they can stop doing it. Here, somebody is worried. You tell them don't worry. It's not something that they can stop because they want to stop it to begin with. They're not able to. So when you simply just say don't worry, it looks as though you're just trying to dismiss the whole thing. You're not really giving a solution. You're not addressing the problem. Or the problem is not important enough for you. They are in a hurry. In a hurry. They don't have time to think about it. So they just kind of say, okay, forget about it. Forget about it. You know, don't think about it. Then, or so it may increase the stress also. More frustration. It increases the frustration. So this don't worry is not a way to mitigate. So how does he say that then? How should one proceed? He says Chinta naasti, he started. So there is such a kind of person, or if you become such a kind of a person, to the extent you can be like this, to that extent you mitigate your tendency to worry. Okay, what should I be like? Who are these people? How are they? What are they? Tesham. Tesham chinta nasti kila. Tesham. For those people, for those people, this there is their freedom from, to whatever extent they are capable of, they reach this point. To that extent, they are free from this tendency to worry about things. Okay. Who are they? Tesham. Who are these people? So he talks about these people. Even Bhagavan Krishna talked about such people in the Gita, he says. So ananyas chintayanto mam ye jana paryupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. He talks about, so the people who are connected to me, I protect them. I protect them. This connection with Parameshwara, this connection with Bhagavan, who for us is not remote. Generally, we begin like that, thinking that, so the one from whom we have come is remote from us. But really speaking, Bhagavan is not remote from us. In fact, nobody is remote. Even our parents are not remote. Even when they are not there, one day they are not there. Yet, 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 are they remote, truly speaking? Maybe from one point they will not be there physically, but within us, they are not remote. There is a connectedness. They are one with us, they are part of us, we are one with them. This is simple things. Even in life, we see this. So it doesn't have to do with physical proximity. When it comes to our source, who's Parameshwara, and the way we understand what Ishvara is, then where is the question of any remoteness? So he says the one, Anyaha is other than me. Ananyaha is non-separate from me. So the one who is able to recognize, who's able to understand, first of all. You first understand what this is. Then I recognize it. Yeah, this is really so. And I recognize it. And then becomes my reality. Becomes my reality. Then such a person, he says, they don't need to sit and worry about things. And Ashocyan Anvashochastvam. Isn't that's how he starts with Arjuna. In that state of anxiety when he was sitting there, how did he start with him? He says, you are worrying about things which you don't need to worry about. It is your worry is illegitimate, in other words. He illegitimizes the worry to start with, and then gets him to a point where he explains to him how you can reach a state where you are free from things of this world, including that whole samsara, idea of samsara. So he says, Te Sham, he says, Te Kevalam Bhagavat Sharanaha Eva. Who are these Tesham? They are Bhagavat Sharanaha, the one who have surrendered to Bhagavan, the one who are devotees. So the devotees, this is another whole dimension to this. Because a devotion to Bhagavan, again, what does that mean? Doesn't the devotee worry about things? Worry about things? Not really. Because he understands Ishvara is the Ishvara is the manifest order, and it has to do with trust. You know, a child doesn't worry really. When I said earlier on, even children worry. They worry when they are able to start thinking about the world. But really speaking, even if they worry when they think about samsara, when they think about them in the presence of their parents, they don't worry. Children don't worry because they are with their parents. So they surrender. They give. There is no need for them to worry because they will be protected. Because they are being protected. They have that shraddha. They have that trust. And so they are able to relax. You know, they go to sleep. They go to sleep. Parents are awake. His fellows go to sleep. You know. So here Bhagavan, he says, take kevalam bhagavat sharanaha. So the one who is able to, if I can see the order that is around me and that I am a part of, that I live within that, and how it operates, then I am not really the one who executes things. And I am able to give that trust in the hands of Parameshwara. Yet do what has to be done. It's not fatalistic in the sense of whatever happens, happens, and I don't care and all that. No. It is with clarity and understanding that I play my part in the machinery, and then the machinery is going to keep functioning. Each part of the machine doesn't think of the whole machine. It does its part, but then it enjoys the benefit of the whole mechanism. So such Tesham, these are the Tesham. He says, further elaborates this. Narayanam atmatvena gataha santaha. And that atmatvena gataha, you see, that non-separation of the individual with Narayana, he says. He reaches that state, so even in terms of life, is able to surrender that I will be taken care of, and whatever comes to me, so is going to be for my good, really speaking. And good things happen to me, of course, they are for my good. When bad things happen to me, these are things that I perceive as bad. But in reality, so it is Bhagavan's karma phalam, and it has to give me some benefit which may be unseen by me at that time, but later on, it is for my good. And we have seen lots of examples of such things in our lifetime. So Tesham, these are such people. She starts like that. Such people, Tesham. Chinta naasti kila. Then he goes on to elaborate certain qualities, gunas, in this person. The idea being, in knowing these qualities, it also gives me a direction. Because for a sadhaka, for a one who is on the on the path of growth, spiritual growth, so he needs certain guidance. And so what the values, etc., that are going to make me such a person. So he talks about a few of them, very few. Shamadama Karuna Sampurnanam. Yes. So the one who is Sampurnam. Sampurnam is the one who is fully endowed, is fully endowed, with certain qualities, such as what? Shamadama Karuna. Just three are mentioned here. So we know in this, we have seen these things before. So certain very spiritual seekers, certain prerequisites, certain qualities, gunas have been described in our scriptures. They are called as sadhana chatushtayam. This fourfold means, sadhanam. Viveka vairagya shat sampatti mumukshutvam. I'm not going to get into all of this now. And then there also shat sampatti, there are other qualities talked about. In all of this, there are some which are very key things. One is what is called as Indriya Nigraha. Indriya Nigraha. He says, he talks about, is also looked upon as Dharma Lakshanam, values, in terms of values. 10 values are talked about, one of which is this Indriya Nigraha. Indriya means the senses. Yes. There are, so Indriyas are there, Jnanendriyas, Karmendriyas, etc. Indriyas are the senses through which I interact with the world. All my sense organs and organs of activity, hands, legs, etc. All these sense organs by which I perceive the world, organs of perception, organs of action. Okay. These are called as Indriyas. And they are help me interact with the objects. They interact with the objects of the world. So Vishaya, object is called as Vishayas. There are Bhogya Vishayas. There are millions of infinite number of objects. In these objects which I interact with, which are Bhogyam. Bhogyam means I enjoy the results of my interaction. I enjoy in terms of karma. So eyes, ears, etc. So this is called as Indriya. Nigraha. Nigraha is having them under control, okay, under management. I'm able to manage this, because this can get out of hand. So there are the senses which are directed towards the world outside. They are called bahyendriyas, outside. And then there are also internal senses in the form of the mind, intellect, the thinking that are internal objects. Okay. So everything that goes on in my mind is internal. Everything that is in the world outside is external. So in this internal, also there is one important Vishayam object, which is called as Jnana Vishaya, object of knowledge. So knowing things. So just keep that in mind, the back of my mind. Normally, what happens? My attention, I'm born for that reason, in fact, to live in the world, and it is directed towards interacting with the world primarily, you know. So my whole attention is diverted externally. And then he says composure is something that happens at the level, two levels. One is called as Shama, one is called as Dama. You know, Shama means Antarendriya Nigraha, a control, a composure, control, also composure. I can try to control people and myself and not composed. So I have chaotic kind of control. No, no, it's not like that. So the person is calm and composed, at the same time is able to manage calmness without tension, without agitation. This is at the mental level. This has to do with thinking. A mind, I need a certain kind of a mind to have composure. It is a mind that doesn't act, think impulsively. A mind that can have clarity, you know. When I understand, the situation arises, I can understand it, I cannot understand it, I can misunderstand it. Okay. So a person who is not given to constant misunderstanding, miscalculation, like, we can calculate, we can make a mistake, get an answer. Sometimes you miscalculate, you know, you make a mistake in calculating. So we mistake people, we conclude erroneously about others, about their intentions, about their feelings, about their actions, all these things. None of these things help me in shamaha, you know, help me in being composed, because they are not in keeping with what is factual. So he says a mind that is not given to this kind of projections. This requires a certain discipline in one's thinking, and also proper judgment, learning to be judge things properly, learning to be patient, learning to give the benefit of doubt, learning to look at a situation from different angles, from different perspectives. They say a wise man is one who is able to look at their own conclusions even from different perspectives. They need not accept all of them, but is able to look at them, is able to understand them, is able to see it also. He says, I am right, I may be right, but what this other person says, I don't fully agree with, but I can see why that person is also right. Even if I don't agree with it fully, I can still see why they think it is right. That's why I can see why some things are right for somebody, they are not right for another person. So this is all having the capacity to look at things from different angles, and then create a composite. That is really clarity. It's like the camera in the car. You have cameras that view different size all around, and then it creates a composite and gives you a picture on the screen, which is none of the individual cameras take. It gives you a composite picture, sometimes even from a different angle, which is not there in the cameras. So that is how this person's mind is able to think like that about situations. They're called non-projecting mind. So a mind having this kind of a thing, a willingness to look and a capacity to look without feeling threatened. We feel threatened also because we love what we think. It takes so much effort for me to think and come to a certain point, a conclusion. Finally, I conclude. Took a lot of effort, but then it's difficult to give up that conclusion. So anyway, so this is shama. This is called as shamaha, and then there is other one called as dhamma. What is dhamma? Dhamma is more connected to the senses. So mind has a twofold function. One, it functions, of course, as the mind that we know, the one that feels, the thinking, feeling, mental activity. That is one job of the mind. The other function of the mind also is that to integrate the senses. So all the input that comes from the senses has to be integrated by the mind, put together in a proper manner, assembled together, and then reach one composite perception. That is called as Bahyendriya. So that also having the capacity to control that. We get stuck on things outside, senses, habits we form, habits in terms of every sense. Looking at TV, you get captivated, looking at things which are beautiful, maybe flowers, etc. But I lose control. I am driven by the objects rather than using the senses as a tool to interact with the objects. Okay. So thus the capacity to able to do that is called as dhamma. So shama dhamma, these are two very important qualities to deal with the objects outside, to deal with the world. There is a beautiful book, Ashtavakra Gita, so in which sage Ashtavakra teaches Janaka. And there he tells him, Muktim ichhasi chet tata vishayan vishavat yaja. He says, if you want mukti, freedom from this perils of samsara, he says, if you want that, ichhasi chet, then what? Vishayan, the objects, the sense objects, bahya vishayas, give up vishavat. Visham is poison. Give them up like poison, like you would poison. Visham is anything that causes disturbance. Is called as visham, really. Anything that is harmful. Therefore, poison is called as visham, because it is harmful. So objects in themselves are not harmful, but if I'm not able to manage them, then they can be harmful to me. So shamadama, then karuna, another thing, beautiful value. Karuna, he says. What is karuna? Also daya. Another word for karuna is daya. Paradukha, hanecha. So the desire, compassion, empathy towards others. When I see somebody else pain, in sorrow, then there is a desire to relieve that person from that sorrow. You know, being able to feel the pain of another person, he says, you know, compassion. The word compassion also has the same meaning. The capacity, it means suffering, the suffering of another. Not really suffering. You can't take it literally. If I see somebody in pain, I don't actually physically feel that pain or suffer. as much as the other person is suffering, but I'm able to appreciate. I'm able to put myself in their shoes and and imagine, visualize what they must be going through. And I don't want them to go through that either. If compassion is not there, then the fellow will say, okay, you serve, I wish it is worse. You should suffer as much as I suffer. You should suffer more than I suffer. You know, it's not like that. I genuinely does, even if I'm suffering. Sometimes we say that, no? Even I know what it's like, that particular pain. I would not want anyone else to have it. I don't want you to have it. That comes from compassion. That comes from daya. So this capacity to be able to, this empathy, to empathize with another, it is again something which is inherent. We see it in animals, we see it in children, we see it in babies also. Babies. Maternity what? So one starts crying, the other starts crying. Then the next baby doesn't know why this one is crying, but I don't know. You know. So maybe it just joins the chorus. Whatever it may be. Even babies don't like, even little bit when they are grown, you carry them around, and if they see another one crying, then immediately their face like that it'll go. So this empathy is natural, but we also lose it very quickly. Because of our own hurt and our own pain, we become we become angry at our pain and then just take it out on other people. So this is, sometimes people have a lot of empathy towards others, but not towards those who are close to them. All these strange reactions we have, our minds react in strange ways. There are people who will serve the whole world but have no heart to serve their own families. Then they're creating problems at home. And then they're out there serving society. So the sensitivity doesn't carry through naturally. So thus, he says, there is, it makes a person, you feel good. There is certain it's interesting in physiology, chemistry, neurochemistry. There are what they call feel good hormones. There are certain things make you feel good. They say like that. Exercise, it makes you feel good. Doing this makes you feel good. You know. So this it releases certain the dopamine, stimulant. So it's called a feel good hormone. Makes you feel good. But it's only temporary. These are all temporary things. Then there are other hormones also, feel good hormones, like oxytocin. These are called as bonding hormones. They call them bonding. So they're like a mother and a child. So they also feel good. They feel good with each other, you know, the interactions. But it is mediated by some other neurochemicals, which is long lasting. It creates bonds. So there are certain things. Sometimes we do things which makes us feel good for the moment. But it doesn't last. There are other feel good things which persist, which remain. So compassion also is not just about just feeling good about doing something for somebody. Sometimes they use the word pity. Have pity on others. Pity generally has negative connotations too, so we kind of avoid using that. It can be perceived negatively. What a pity. What a pity you don't listen to me. You would not have gotten into this trouble. So it's like, you were not smart enough to do what I said. So it's a kind of a little bit of a put down also. So, but generally it's not, daya is not like that. It's genuine compassion. They say pity comes from Bhagavan. There are beautiful verses that talk of Karpura Gauram, Karunavataram, Samsara Saram, Bhujagendraharam, Sadavasantam, Hridayara Vinde Bhavam Bhavani Sahitam Namami. Lord Shiva is called as Karunavataram. He is Karuna. So manifest as Karuna, compassion, compassion. So many stories are there in the Puranas about them. Narayana also. So Dayam Bodhi, as Venkateshwara is called Dayam Bodhi. He is the ocean of Daya, from which all this, he says, Vigahe Tirtha Bahulam, where all these, the rivers of compassion flow from this one who's the ocean of compassion. And these rivers of compassion, these are the rivers, our sacred rivers, Ganga, Yamuna, all these sacred rivers are expressions of compassion. That's the metaphor. And they arise from this great ocean of compassion, whose Narayana is talked about. Even Mahalakshmi, she is called as Karunam Rupinim. As as a consort of Narayana, so he is an ocean of compassion. She is also, he says, is Karunam Iva Rupini, Devi, etc. All this compassion is very closely so connected to Daivam, to Bhagavan. So Shama Dama Karuna Sampurnanam, one who has these qualities. How do I cultivate these things? So he says, Sadhu Samagama Sankirnanam. Sadhu Sankirnam. Association, not just simple association, but a close association, a bonding. So with which I have imbibed certain qualities that we learn from them. We identify with them. We emulate them. I want to be like them. We value the values that they value and that they live by. So this is all the results of this Sangha, Satsangaha, with sadhus, Sadhu Purushaha. So there are sadhus are there in society around. There are people who value certain values. Samanya Dharma value certain universal values, not only value them, but live by them, try to live by them. And so we find such people, and then when you find them, you associate with such people. And in their association, we grow, we cultivate these values also. It's not easy to find. People always say this. We also think we don't find such people. Teachers, certain teachers who are there. You don't have to look for, if you look for the values, you find the people who have the values. Yeah. But there are also, if we don't look for the values also, we don't find, it's like that. You go to any town, you find everything there. And then we will always gravitate towards those things which attract us. It's a catch-22. And then that gets reinforced. So, sadhu samagama sankirna. Then, ka Chinta naasti kila. Then next line, it says, Kalatrayajita kandarpanam. Kalatrayam. We all know, you know what that is. Jitam Kandarpanam. What is this Kandarpanam? It's interesting. Sometimes you listen, you can't depend on Google always. So sometimes you see these translations. I saw this interesting translation. It said, for this, for those who have conquered lust at all three divisions of time. Okay, interesting. So it's all dictionary meaning. You take the word and find some meaning. Kandarpa. What is Kandarpa? Kandarpa is the name. We know it's a name for so our Kamadeva, also called Manmatha, Ananga. Many names he has. Madana Gopala. Remember? Even Krishna is called Madana Gopala. Rati Kanta. He has many different names. But the Kamadeva or Kandarpa, this he is associated with attraction, with love, with passion. The word darpa also means pride, conceit. So pride, conceit, vanity, you know. So that is darpa. Abhimanam, this aham bhavaha. So in kandarpaha, so there is even with love and attraction, there is associated vanity and pride, the kandarpaha. Also attraction, when we talk about attraction, it's interesting. This is called Shakti. It is a power. It's a power. Everything is a power. Just keep in mind. They're all Shakti manifestations. And there is a certain Shakti manifestation. It's called Akarshana Shakti. Akarshana Shakti. She's one of the forms. There's different forms of Akarshana Shakti that are invoked in Shakti Upasana. They do. And that one can, they say you can this cultivate this Shakti with mantra upasana and all. It's called Akarshana Shakti. So this Akarshana means to attract, You can attract, they can attract somebody towards them. But this Akarshanam also has an interesting meaning, So attraction also means pulling away. When I attract something towards me, I'm pulling it away from something somewhere else, So when I look at this attraction, Akarshana Shakti, which is connected to Ahambhava, to Darpa, to my ego, then what happens? What does the ego do? Going back to the senses, it is always directed to the external Vishayas, external Vishayas, objects. The objects have this Shakti to attract me to them, or I fall under the spell of the objects. This individual, this ahankara, falls under the spell of the Vishayas, and I'm able to pull it back from them towards me, bring it back. This is Akarshana Shakti also, So this capacity to do that, Khandarpanam, Kalatrayam, with respect to what? So all Kalatrayam, the past, present, future, It is what my mind is, my life is. Nothing. I live in the past, I live in the future, I live in the perhaps a little bit in the present, So this capacity to pull myself away, the same idea of Shama Dama, and being able to take it away from the world outside and then direct it towards Jnana Vishayam, that knowledge of myself, my connection with Ishvara. This guna, this quality in me, That is what you pray for. Even in Upasana, when you pray to that Shakti, through Devi, this Akarshanam is this capacity in me to be able to pull back from the attraction, natural attraction to the world, and then bring it to myself. This is what you pray for. There is a whole, avarana in Shakti Upasana for Akarshana Shaktis, various. So, Kalatrayajita Kandarpanam Khandita Sarvendriya Darpanam. See, same idea elaborates here. Sarvendriya Darpaha. Is Kandarpaha there he may talked about? The next word he says is same. Sarva Indriya Darpanam. Again, Indriya Darpaha, again what I said, the Indriya, the ego, Darpaha Ankara, is the one being able to, so that which is led by the sense organs to the world outside, cultivating, so practicing self-control. In other words, no simple language. Not so simple. How do you practice self-control? Learn to have self-control. Self-control. How do I have self-control? It says first, to have self-control, one has to first know what's going on in oneself. Correct? So that is by starting introspection. That's what they call introspection. Inspection of the internal organ, my mind. So this introspection, looking at myself objectively and having a self-awareness. So I look at myself. What do I see? In order to identify what I see, I have to be able to see. I have to have a certain awareness. Like I have awareness of the world. I am very sharp sometimes, very aware of the world. What's happening here? What's happening there? What's happening with whom? That same awareness, which is towards me too. My mind. What is happening? How is it feeling? Why is it feeling this way? What do I think? How do I think? What can I expect to think under certain circumstances? Sometimes we say that, no? Sometimes, oh, you said this. I said, no, I didn't say this. I don't think I will say this also. I know my mind does not think like that. Some people you can have good clarity about these matters. Sometimes we don't, you know. You don't. You just said it. Just two sentences before. No, 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 I didn't say. So then there's no self-awareness. So like that, having self-awareness and then being able to introspect, just in a relaxed manner, not all tense. So here cultivating this, one's mind, tendencies, reactions, thought process, thought content, all these things. And then transcending, he says, being able to transcend the mind and the senses. What do you mean by transcending? What does transcending mean? Transcend something doesn't mean going somewhere physically. No. It is going beyond the scope of something is called to transcend, to go beyond. So the go beyond the just being stuck with the what are senses? They are tools, right? They are karanas. They are tools, they are instruments through which I interact with the world. They are instruments. Okay. Now, I says by that recognition, and so objects also. Objects are objects. Objects are not sources of happiness. That means if I have that understanding, a source of happiness is within me. That means I'm going beyond the object. Because generally we get stuck at the object level. We don't see beyond it. So that seeing beyond is just transcending. That is beyond the scope, the general normal scope. Okay. Not ultimately it is possible. That's why I'm able to do it. So it's not truly beyond the scope. But then generally where we get stuck at that level, being able to go beyond that level is what is called as transcending. So being able to transcend the senses, etc. We all know that beautiful kalpana, the Ratha kalpana of the chariot, Arjuna's, Sri Krishna's chariot. So where mind is the reins, etc. I won't get into that. We all know that example. But it is a symbol, a metaphor for this control of the mind and senses. And finally, in the last line, he says another couple of things. Paramahamsa Guru Pada Chittanam, he says. So the one whose Pada Chittam is the Padam, this the feet of the Guru, the one whose mind is, so mind is means attuned to the feet of the teacher. That is a symbolic representation of respect, for one's teacher, Guru Padam. Is the one who's a guru, as we all know, somebody who is able to guide and help me discover my connection to Bhagavan. Guru is the one who connects the individual to Ishvara, not to himself or herself. There's not that. Really speaking, it doesn't have any place there. But the one who's able to connect, help me discover myself, to my own source, etc. So the one whose mind is attuned to that. So that is the knowledge that we talk about. It comes from Parameshwara himself. He says he is the source of all. And Brahmananda, Brahmananda Amrutamattanam. So these are the people. So you're talking about these people, remember, Tesham. So they are also not only ones who are connected to the teacher by being connected to what the teacher does. Is bring them close to themselves, to their own source. And then what is that? And they are also the one who are Mattanam, Brahmananda Amrita Mattanam. They are intoxicated. They are intoxicated on this Amritam, on this nectar, you know. Nectar, which is called as Brahmananda Amritam, you know. See, there are all kinds of intoxicants. What's an intoxicant? What's an intoxicant? So intoxicant is something, they say this person is intoxicated, inebriated, DUI, under the influence. Yeah. Driving under the influence. So intoxication is being under the influence of something. And who is this person under the influence of? Brahmanandam, he says. This is an intoxicant that is called Brahmanandam. It is a kind of an ananda, a joy. So he's completely absorbed in this joy of, of, of knowing himself as non-separate from Ishvara, from Brahman. Is called Brahmananda Amritam, and the one who's totally under the influence of that. In the sense, there is no ego there that is driving this person. There is only his recognition and surrender. It's another way of saying surrender. Surrender way of surrender. Ananda, you see, if you want to define everything in terms of Ananda. Or, so you define everything in terms of devotion, bhakti, surrender. And so it's the same thing, really speaking. That person who has surrendered to Bhagavan, then what is there? There is room for nothing other than another joy. Being able to hand over, like the child and the parent. And a person who is able to cultivate such a mind to whatever extent, it is not an all or none phenomenon, you know, but to whatever extent one is able to accomplish this, that is why our attempt never ends. We don't shouldn't see it as ending or even look for an ending. To the extent one accomplishes, to that extent I am accomplished. And that is what gives me the fulfillment, as much as I need it. And who determines that again is Bhagavan alone. And that is also a part of this surrender. So being able to, I don't want to transcend what Bhagavan thinks is right for me. Because a devotee doesn't have a need for that. Really doesn't have a need for that. So whatever is given is enough, and whatever is going to be enough is going to be given. So that kind of a mind really has transcended this state of being anxious, or worrying. What am I going to worry about? So this mind has no room there to sit and dwell upon those kinds of things. So in just very beautiful. So this is the devotee. And when he composed certain values that he saw the depth of their relevance in the growth, in the spiritual growth of a person. But then in his mind, then he says, Ashocyan Anvashochastvam. So in his mind, it's like Bhagavan saying, what are you worried about? Why are you worried? There is no need to worry. And then you just look at these things in yourself and cultivate them. And you will have a mind that transcends this worrying about the samsara. So anyway, certain very beautiful composition. Like that, he has other beautiful compositions also, others. So, Chinta nahi nahi re, manasa. There was another thing. He talks about, he addresses his own mind. He says, oh mind, you need not have chinta. And why? What do you need to do to be? So then unnecessarily you won't have this thing which you don't need to have in you. Like that. There's another composition of his also. So anyway, with that, I'll stop with this one. And then let's see. We have only 3 minutes. So perhaps if there is one question, I can take that. Otherwise, we'll stop. Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.